Okay, so back in the garage here with the 97 A4 Quattro 2.8. Today we're going to be working on the brakes. We're going to put all new brakes all the way around with a little bit of an upgrade as well. So let's get started. Okay, step one, get the wheel off. $17mm. Alright, so these brakes, they don't look bad at all. They look fine. There's plenty of material on them. The surface is nice, but I do get a shudder during high-speed braking. The whole car, the steering wheel, a little bit of a vibration, and I try to get these rotors turned and resurfaced, and nobody does that anymore. Nobody will do it. They'd say it's $25 a rotor to resurface them, and you can just buy new ones for less than that. So I had to buy new ones. They weren't less than that, but I got brand new rotors, and these things, if they could be turned, they would be fine. But whatever. So we're going to just replace them. Okay, so we take this spring off. Step one. And now we got two dust boots on the back of these caliper pins. Pull those off. And these pins are Allen heads, 7mm. Reverse. And pull these pins out. This is what they look like. Allen head. And on the bottom as well. And now this caliper will come off. And we'll just hang it up here so that it's safe. And out of the way. Get it more out of the way than that. Okay, we get two 17mm bolts to take this carrier off. Right in the back here. Make sure I'm in reverse. Still. And now this whole thing comes off. And as well as the rotor. It's in good shape. Look, there's no material at all worn off of this thing, but it wobbles and shakes and no one will turn it. So, whatever. Okay, here's a quick peek at the rotors I will be putting on the car. These are beautiful Brembo rotors. They are coated to prevent rust, and very nice. So that's what's going on the car. Okay, so here we are putting the rotors on. These rotors come with a little screw to hold the rotor in place, but my hub doesn't have a screw hole in it. So what I'm going to do is just going to lock it in here with a lug nut. So now it stays in place for me. Okay, next step is to put the carrier on. I'm going to put a little Loctite on these bolts to keep them in place so they don't back out for any reason. Okay, 17 mil, we'll lock these down. Alright, a little bit of brake cleaner. Clean these carriers up a little bit. Okay, before I put these brake pads in, I'm going to compress this caliper. Okay, so that's ready for nice fat brake pads. I'll be using Red Stuff brake pads. EBC, I believe is the name of the company. And then the two pins that hold the caliper in place. And those pins use a 7mm Allen wrench. Make sure they're tight. Last but not least is our hardware, spring-loaded hardware. Come on. Make sure the caliper slides back and forth nice and freely. And I think that's it. Okay, so here's what it looks like. And by the way, this is a kind of an upgraded braking system. These rotors are larger rotors than what came on this car. These rotors are 312 millimeters, and they're actually from a 2004 A4 with a 3.0 liter engine. So the 2004 A4 3-liter engine came with 312 millimeter brake rotors, And to get them to fit on my car, I got these carriers here. Came off of a first generation Audi TT. So that allows me to use the larger rotors, and this carrier works perfectly fine with my original calipers and the original brake pads. So that should get me stopping quite a bit better. And then the rest of the suspension up front got a brand new shock. Rebuilt that strut. I did a video on that. Got 2 new upper control arms. The lower control arm, the sway bar end link, and the other lower control arm. So we're in good shape here. I'm going to put the wheel on, and the wheel, again, it's another little not an aftermarket. It's not the original wheel. The wheels I have on this car are from an '01 S4. So here's a look at the rear wheels. All right, so the wheels are from an '01 S4. The rotors are from a 2004 A4 3-liter. The carriers are from a first generation Audi TT, and original calipers and pads, and Bilstein shocks specifically for this car, and upper and lower control arms. So it's kind of a little way of upgrading, but keeping it looking stock. Your average person walking by the car wouldn't think anything of it. They've seen this car with those wheels on it before, not a big deal. And no one's ever going to recognize these are larger rotors, except for maybe someone who has this car. And so that's just a way I've improved performance of this car without making it look like it's got a bunch of aftermarket bolt-on stuff. So the wheels are bigger and wider, and the brakes are bigger. And so there we are. Okay, moving around to the rear. We're putting pads and rotors back here as well. Okay, here we are at the back now. And first step is to remove the caliper, which are 2 13mm bolts, one here at the bottom and one up at the top. I'm going to stop this whole assembly from turning. So I'll sneak in here with my needle nose vice grips. Okay, there's 2 bolts. When this caliper comes off, it's got an emergency brake cable hooked to it, so we'll just kind of set it aside like that. Okay, and this rear caliper carrier comes off with a couple 8mm fasteners. I don't know if you can see that. There's one. Okay, and here's the upper one. Right there. And that's off. And now the entire carrier comes off. And so now with the caliper off and the carrier off, this little brake rotor comes off. So we're tossing this. And I'm going to clean up this face a little bit before we put our new rotor on it. Alright, got a brown cookie wheel. Clean this up a little bit. That was better. Alright, so here we need to retract this piston in the back caliper to make room for our thicker pads. This is not quite as easy as the front. The front ones just push in, piece of cake. These are a little more difficult. Got this tool. You need to be able to push that in and allow it to turn, or turn it and push it in simultaneously. So I've got this tool kind of set up like this, and it kind of does this thing here. Got these 2 notches that will fit in with the 2 notches here on the piston. And so I always kind of struggle with this thing. Okay, so now I've got it like this, and now the idea is to turn this, which will push it in, but allow this to actually turn as well. So you're not just pushing, you're pushing and you're allowing it to spin. And it does take quite a bit of force. Not my favorite part, but you can see I'm rotating the whole thing and pushing it in at the same time. And I think the key is just to kind of go slow. But this is never easy. Wish there was a better tool for this, but this is a pretty good tool to get it done. Got to keep this fake shoe up against the ears, so as I turn the whole assembly I need to come back and tighten the fake brake shoe. And I think that's in far enough, actually. seems to be flush. And there you have it. Okay, another thing I want to do is kind of clean off the back side of these ears, which is going to make contact with the new brake pads. So just a little bit of surfaced corrosion. I'm going to kind of clean up a little bit. I'm not sure if you can see that back there, but just kind of clean them up. They feel nice and smooth now. Put a little bit of brake lubricant on there when I assemble it, but just to keep that nice and clean without any rust or corrosion to crush anytime you apply the brakes. I think that's good enough, actually. Yeah, they feel nice. So I just want to clean those up. Okay, also while I've got these carriers off, I want to check, make sure these pins are clean and lubricated and slide nice. Maybe just add a touch, some fresh lubricant on there, not too much. You don't want to pack a bunch of grease and get it stuck in there so it can't bottom out. And just put a little bit, some fresh stuff on there. Those are nice and loose. I cleaned out this little area here where the brake pads go. And this is all set. Alright, and so here we are on the back. I've got nothing unusual back here, just the original size Brembo. Nice rotor, got a nice finish on it so it won't corrode on the hat part of it and on the edge. I don't know if that's a powder coating or what, but very nice. That on there, we'll lock it in place with a lug nut. It stays. And now we'll put the carrier back in. And it's always a good idea, a little Loctite on the carrier bolts. We don't need these things loosening up on us. There we go. Tight. So that's on. Okay, now put on the nice Brembo brake pads. Already cleaned up this rotor with brake cleaner. Put these pads in place. And then we'll put this caliper over it. Should be room now because we compressed the piston. I'll make sure these springs are behind. the caliper are not sticking through, which they are. And a little bit of Loctite on the hardware. And a little bit of Loctite on the hardware. Apply a little bit of pressure because of the two springs, which keeps everything nice and tight. And then tighten those two bolts. Let's see what we got here. Should be fine. Hold on to this so the whole thing doesn't spin. Make sure we're going the right way. These things don't have to be, you don't have to stand on these either. But they need to be tight, and you got Loctite on them. The whole thing slides nicely on the pins. And that should be it. Okay. Time to put the wheel back on. Put my dummy stud in here first. This makes things a little easier. And there we go. All set. And so here we are. We are all set. We've got the large Brembo rotors on. All ready to go. That's the front. New rotors in the back. And so there we have it. All set. 312 millimeter rotors on a 97 A4 Quattro with S4 wheels. Thanks for watching.